It actually
I have one of those.
And hey, Quint, welcome to the program. How did you get into theater?
Oh, I did a play. Well, I did a show called Massive Theater Piece back in 1973. And it was at the University of Utah. And I was in the ecclesiastical chorus.
Okay.
And I always said, I should audition for something. So finally, a friend of mine woke me up one Sunday, not Sunday, it was a Saturday morning, and said, come on, we're going to the Playhouse to audition. The show they were doing was called Promise Valley.
Okay.
And the theater was called Promise Valley Playhouse.
Okay.
Now, Promise Valley is about... it was written for the centennial of the Mormons coming into Salt Lake and establishing. And so I knew what the show was about. It was a musical. So I went up and I actually sang a piece from Mass, a theater piece by Leonard Bernstein, for my cousin, who was the musical director. And I got into the show. And what really happened was the director, a man by the name of Robert Peterson, who was also the star of the show that year. It was the last year he did the show. But Robert Peterson actually treated everybody as if they were the star.
Okay.
Didn't matter if you were a chorus member,
right.
Never done the show before.
Sure.
I'd seen it once, but I'd seen it several times, but he treated everybody like they were the star. And I thought, wow, this is really pretty cool. Well, the following year, after the summer, I went to Brigham Young University, and I thought, oh, well, I went as a music major, no less.
Right.
And so I went there, and I thought, well, I'll audition for something. What can they do? Say no?
Right.
Well, I got in, I auditioned for what they call Mass Club. It was student production, one-act play.
Sure.
The students who directed there were doing the directing for a class, for the directing class.
Right.
And so everybody who takes the directing class has to direct a Mass Club show. So I auditioned for this show called We're Doing Eastbourne in 10 Minutes. It's a screwball English.
Yes.
And so I auditioned, and they gave me the part of Humphrey, which really surprised me because I was the second male lead. And, I mean, he was a strange character to begin with, but I had a lot of fun. And one of the things the director kept telling us is, you're all actors.
Right.
And I never considered myself an actor until that moment. Before the semester was over, I was no longer a music major, but I was a theater major after that.
So when you were a music, what did you major in? I mean, was it a particular instrument or?
No, I was voice.
Voice, okay.
Yeah, I actually tried to sing.
Right. well, you must obviously. I mean, you usually have to audition to get in the program, right? So you must.
No, I really didn't. But I was. I did have to audition to try and get into the choruses.
Sure.
And I spent a year at the University of Utah, and I did audition for. I did get into the mixed chorus, men's chorus. It was on Tuesdays and Thursdays I was in the men's chorus, and on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays I was in the mixed chorus. And that's where we learned the music for Mass, a theater piece by Leonard Bernstein. And the person who was my teacher became, his name was Gerald Otley, he became the conductor of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir.
Okay.
And conducted them for many years. And so it was like seeing people that I knew every time I saw the Tabernacle Choir perform, because it was like, I know Gerald. And so from that point on, I just worked very hard at trying to learn my craft of trying to be an actor.
Mm-hmm.
Took the required acting classes, and when you might say my second biggest embarrassment was I did a scene from Paint Your Wagon.
Okay. Yes.
In this beginning acting class, and I had to sing, and so I sang "I Was Born Under a Wandering Star."
Yes, that's obvious.
And I had to change some of the lyrics because it really wouldn't fit very well with at BYU. So I went in there and I tried to perform it to the best of my ability, but I was still pretty new at the time, and it was not quite a disaster, but it wasn't as good as I'd hoped it would be. I think my biggest disaster was directing, trying to direct a play called Fumed Oak by Noel Coward. And the only people I could get to do the show were my family. And it just didn't, it kind of tried to stand up and fall down and it didn't do anything. And I had to stop it within, 5 minutes of trying to get the show going. I knew it wasn't going to happen. And so I stopped it and apologized for putting my fellow grad students through all this. And then I went in and had to defend myself to the class and to Dr. Berger, Sidney Berger. And he, I went in there. I was just very matter of fact and very honest about what was going on and what happened. And I did not blame anybody for the way it went.
Right.
And I took most of the blame myself as not being, which was one of my saving graces in in my career as a grad student. Is I would always tell them the truth. I took a costuming class in which I had to clothe a show called Drag Bimbos Take Manhattan. And when I got the assignment, I says, "Oh, this will be interesting." I started doing a little research as to what to do and what I needed to get. And the playwright and the director both worked in the scene shop, or not the scene shop, but the costume shop.
Right.
And I went there one day, and they went in. They chose everything. I had nothing to say about the whole thing. And it just, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to use this, we're going to use that. And I'm just going, what am I supposed to do? And all I had to do was sign for it.
Sign for it?
Yes, because I was the clother. I had to sign.
You still have to prove it, but you know it's the same.
And so when it came time to, after that was, I just thought, oh, well, I'll have to remember when tech rehearsals are so I can go and be represented and everything. And tech rehearsal came and went. I didn't even know it.
What? What, you mean they didn't notify you?
Well, I was supposed to stay on top of it, but as I said, everything was done.
Right.
I didn't have anything really to do about it, and I had no real say in what was going on. And so when the teacher went there to look at everything, I wasn't there.
Right.
So I had to, when I got there the next day, they said it would have been nice if you were there last night. And I just went, oh, that's right. Last night was And when I saw the teacher, she said, "What happened?" And I said, "Well, I spaced it." And she said, "You know, that isn't an excuse." And I looked at her and I said, "I didn't offer it as one."
Right. Yeah.
I didn't offer it as only what happened.
Right. Yeah.
And it was where I was just letting her know that, hey, I did it. Mm-hmm. I forgot. And what can you do?
What you can do?
Stop
it is what it is, right?
From getting my degree or
right.
anything like that. And says, yes, I know what had happened. I know what the...
She knew the situation.
And, well, she kind of got the situation when I explained how everything was transpiring and how it just completely went out of my mind because I really didn't have anything to do about it. Mm-hmm. And so she says, I didn't get as good a grade as I could have, but I got a decent grade out of the class. And especially when I had to build my own poet shirt. That was interesting in and of itself, in that she had 6 patterns, and then we had to make our own out of brown butcher paper.
Right.
And I still have it. I still have it.
So why did you keep it?
Oh, because I've used it time and time again. Mm-hmm. When I did Christmas Carol, I took the basic pattern and I just extended it from coming down to the waist, going all the way down to my feet. Mm-hmm. And it became my nightshirt.
Sure.
And when and one of the things that we did for that show is that when it was time for me to go to bed, I'm standing up there in plain view of everybody. Mm-hmm. I just pulled the shirt out and let it fall. Right. And the audience got a nice chuckle out of that one. And then when it was time at the end of the show, when I had to get dressed again, all I started doing was frantically tucking it into my pants. Because I had to dress and undress in front of the audience. And so I did that, and so people wondered, hey, I've gotten use out of that thing. Mm-hmm. And then about 2 years later, I did a show called A Company of Wayward Saints, in which we were playing comedic characters. Mm-hmm. And I was playing Il Capitano, and I says, well, I've got this shirt. And she says, well, the shirt's nice, but it's not really what I want. And I says, well, I still have I have the pattern for it. And she says, oh, well, can I see it? And so I showed it to her, and she built me another shirt. Right. With the pants. Right. Using the pattern. Using that same pattern. The pants is something she had all along, but using that same pattern, she built me another. So I have 3 poet shirts sitting in my closet. Right. One is really long, in case I ever do a Christmas Carol again. I'll dust it off and get it out. But it was the things that you learn and you keep through your schooling. It was kind of interesting.
So what's the most bizarre show you've ever did in college?
In college, I think the most bizarre show I ever did was called The Locksmith. Okay. And it was an original script. And I played the locksmith, of all things. Okay. And there's another guy there who played Mr. Finster. And he and I we got along so well, but we were supposedly opposites. Right. So we dressed kind of the same. Right. And I still had hair at the time, but he had more of it. Mm. And we got out there and we did this very strange little show. And the person who had the lead, they said, well, he seems a little wooden. Because, he was just And he says, when it came to the locksmith and Mr. Finsker, it was just, those two were so well, it was so easy to watch.
Right.
And so that was perhaps the strangest show when I was in college. After college, I think the strangest show I was ever in was Rocky Horror.
Okay.
And it's a show I'll never do again.
Really?
Yeah.
That's strange. Well, so the last we said it was an original play. Was it mean one of the students wrote it or submitted? How did that happen?
Well, there's quite a. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
there's quite a writing presence at BYU,
Okay.
and people write plays and put it in a file. I think I still have a play down there.
Right.
In the file.
Right.
I don't know if anybody's ever really wanted to do it.
So interesting. You say it goes into the file. So what does that mean? They got the right to use it, or
they pretty much have the right to use it. But what it is you have these original works, these little one acts,
right,
that the students write,
yeah,
and they submit it, and it goes into a file. And when students want something different to do,
right,
they will go into the file and look at the script, read one, say, "Oh, I like this one," and so they do that one. And so as I say, I have one in the file down there too, but I don't think anybody has ever really tried to do it.
Well, that's interesting. You say you said they're wrote because I've done workshops before, which is part of the whole vetting process of show. So how do these things get vetted? Other than the teacher probably grades them, how do they get vetted?
Well, we actually read them in class. And we have
so you do get feedback then?
Yes.
Yeah, this sucks, this needs to be changed, or whatever. And you can take it or leave it, I suppose. But
yeah, my one attempt at writing a musical met with something less than applause. Or it was a musical adaptation of get this, shows you how young I was. It was a musical adaptation of A Tale of Two Cities.
Okay.
First act took 2.5 hours.
Oh, jeez. It did have only 2 acts? Or no?
And we only read the first one. The second one didn't quite get written. I took the first act and read it to see what kind of reaction I'd get. And I got a lot of shaking of the head. And, no, this isn't. They suggested that I pare it down some. And I tried for a while. I changed the name from A Tale of Two Cities to a show called Sydney.
Okay.
And I concentrated on the character of Sidney Crighton. And that's about as far as it got. I think I still have a copy of it written in longhand at home somewhere.
Yeah.
As I say, it was less than stellar, and so I didn't really pursue it.
Interesting. What do you think is the greatest, I guess, let's say, failing mistake that new writers make? You must have seen a lot of it in the class, but
probably writing about something they have no idea about. However, people say write what you know.
Right.
But sometimes you just have to let your imagination go. I know people who are very much into the method acting bit.
Right.
And so if you have to play a colossal drunkard, what do? Go out and get drunk every night to see what it's like? It's something I never wanted to do.
Right.
And I played one of the colossal drunkards. His name was Sir John Falstaff. And so I just thought, how would I approach this? How would I feel if I did this?
Right.
And I let my imagination take me to places that I would never go willingly. And as a result, I won an award for that. It's called the Pot Gut Award. It was given by the critic at the Park record in Park City, Utah. And I did Sir John Falstaff and Henry IV, Part 1. And as I said, I had to be a drunkard, and I've never been drunk in my life. And so I just observed people, and I used my imagination more than I used real experience. That can work for you.
Right.
So don't get me wrong. One of the biggest failings is biting off a little more than you can chew. And the more you write, the better you become. I've got copies of the first plays I wrote, and they are wretched. Really,
you keep them as a reminder.
Really wretched. And when you take a look at where I've gone, I wrote my first play when I was 16, and it's a terrible. It's very innovative at times, but I was surprised to see how innovative I was at the time. But I certainly didn't know how to write a good play, and so it just as years went on, I got better at it. Even so much as the first time I tried to get into Edward Albee's playwriting workshop at University of Houston, I got in. And a couple of years later, I needed to take a class. I needed to have a class to fill up a 2-hour block. So I said, I'll take beginning playwriting. I get in there and the teacher gets up and he says, I want everybody to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about them. I said, okay, that'll be fine. And one guy got up and he says, I'm Kelly Babb, I've just been accepted into Edward Albee's playwriting workshop for next semester. I was going, good. And the teacher says, I've tried for several years to get into that, and I've never been able to do it. Okay, so it comes to me. And so he says, I'm Quint Bishop. I've already taken the playwriting workshop from Edward Albee. And it was just like, what do I do? I've already taken it. I know what it's like. One thing I learned from Edward Albee's playwriting workshop is I don't have to write like Edward Albee.
No, thank goodness.
And, I was just like, I don't have to write like Edward Albee. I'd much rather write like Neil Simon. Who Edward does not like.
Oh, gee, I can't imagine why.
Well, Edward does think of himself as being a little bit better because he's won 3 Pulitzers.
Oh, gee.
Neil Simon has won only 1.
Oh, gee.
But Neil Simon has had something that Edward Albee has never been able to achieve. Neil Simon had 7 plays running simultaneously on Broadway.
Incredible, just incredible achievement.
They still had The Odd Couple playing at the time that Jake's Women came out. When you talk about so many plays and 7 of them running in 7 different theaters on Broadway. If you've ever been to Broadway, it's not that
incredible.
They don't have that many theaters there. And to have 7 of them taken up with Neil Simon.
He's got a theater named after him now. He's got, not too shabby.
And so, one time I was asked who is my favorite playwright. It was asked to me on stage.
Okay.
And I said, after myself, William Shakespeare. And close after William Shakespeare comes Neil Simon. And in my career at the University of Houston, I offended the honors teacher to, I just really offended him a great deal when I told him in a paper that it wouldn't surprise me that in 100 years there would be two classes. Mm-hmm. One on William Shakespeare, and rightfully so. The other one on Neil Simon. Because the two of them are so linked together, because neither one of them went to college.
Really?
One of the big drawbacks that Shakespeare had was he was not a university wit. Mm-hmm. And in fact, one of the university wits called him a Shakespeare. But he was terribly talented. Right. He knew what went on the stage, what would sell and what wouldn't. Right. And Neil Simon also didn't go to college. Started writing for people like Sid Caesar, Show of Shows, and those.
It was an awesome writing team. You think of the talents of that comedy writing team. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And they would write whole scenes, whole skits, and then he decided he was going to sit down and write a full-length play, a comedy, and ended up with "Come Blow Your Horn," which was a very funny show. But Neil Simon also writes characters that you recognize and you can identify with.
Yes.
Shakespeare does the same thing. Mm-hmm. Shakespeare writes characters that even today you recognize
they hold up,
who they are and what they're doing.
Right.
And so you have all of these people who try to say that Shakespeare didn't do this or Shakespeare didn't do that. In 100 years, they'll try to say that Neil Simon didn't do it either. A lot of it is sour grapes, and so I tend to not listen to when they say, well, according to this, according to computer models, Shakespeare did not write his plays. It was written by somebody else. Shakespeare was very coarse. And you're just going, give me a break. Because you didn't have to be you don't have to be a college graduate to write well. Look at all the people who didn't go to college who still write well.
Sure.
And nobody tries to say, well, you didn't write that.
Right.
Obama might say that, but they really didn't do that.
Right.
They wrote their work. And so why not let Shakespeare, because you have people who were his contemporaries who kept saying, no, Shakespeare wrote this. Now, there are some where you can really tell that Shakespeare didn't write all of it. Mm-hmm. But then there were a lot of things in Shakespeare that so he would take an existing play and rewrite it.
Right.
One of the big examples of that is Taming of the Shrew. Mm-hmm. Originally, it was called Taming of a Shrew. And when he got a hold of it, he added characters and he added better prose and better poetry. So when it was done, everybody remembers his. And you really have to search to find the Taming of a Shrew, and then you have to try and read it in Elizabethan English, which is fun in and of itself. And then there are other plays that he wrote portions of, and one play that he actually shares the authorship with another man, and that man is John Fletcher. Fletcher and Shakespeare wrote a play called Two Noble Kinsmen. But what you might not know is that Fletcher wrote the major portion of Henry VIII. So, to really be honest, you can't say that Henry VIII is solely Shakespeare's, but Shakespeare's and Fletcher. Mm-hmm. or more, should I say, Fletcher.
Fletcher and Shakespeare.
And Shakespeare, I'm sure, added a few good, he added a lot of good scenes to it, but he didn't write the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the situation with any writer back in those days. Mm-hmm. They would go and say, we need something in this area here. We need 20 lines to make a bridge here.
Right.
And so Shakespeare said, all right, I can do that. And so he'd write 20 lines, and they would come up and they said, this is really pretty good. Can you take this play? It's called Henry VI. See what you can do with that. And so he just reworked Henry VI and made it into 3 different plays, and parts 1, 2, and 3, and made it so much better than what it was originally. And again, Taming of the Shrew and a few other things. Some things he wrote entirely on his own. Some scholars in the 19th century wanted to absolve Shakespeare of ever having written Titus Andronicus. Titus Andronicus was the Friday the 13th of its day. Hugely popular, very bloody. And they said, well, Shakespeare couldn't have written that. And yeah, Shakespeare would have. It was good theater. And there are times that you write good theater just for the sake of good theater. And he wrote Titus Andronicus, one of the bloodiest, goriest plays that you'll ever want to read. And or even see. Right. And, you have tongues cut out, you have hands lopped off, you have 2 boys, or two young men who are really despicable. They end up getting their throats slit and chopped up into meat pies. All for the effect at the end when the boy's mother and the despot emperor come to dine with Titus, and finally they say, Tamara, the queen, turns around and says, "Where are my sons?" And she's just taken a big bite of one of the meat pies, and he points to it. And she goes crazy, and Titus, Saturninus gets up and stabs Titus, and Titus stabs Saturninus, and just as everybody's dying on stage, Lucius comes in, Titus's son comes in. Of course, it's a tragedy. Everybody's almost dead, and so he becomes the new emperor. And unfortunately, there is no emperor of Rome called Saturninus, nor one called Lucius. It was completely made up from his mind, but it was the blockbuster of his day, and it was constantly restaged because people would come out in droves to see it. Right.
So what did you learn from all these classes? I assume he taught this, right? Or did
he taught it. As I said, the biggest thing I learned is I don't have to write like Edward Albee.
Right.
And I found out that I really don't like... I really disagreed with many of the people who were in the class. Because they were all trying to write to please Edward Albee. I was just trying to learn what I can do and what I can't do. And one of the things I learned was I don't have to write like Edward Albee. Right. And so I've decided I'm not going to write like Edward Albee. My big story about that is in order to get into his playwriting class, you had to give him a sample of your work. Well, I gave him 16 pages of an unfinished script. Okay. And I kept working on it while I was taking the class. And I kept working on it and working on it. By the time the class was over, I'd finished it. One of the things I was not really aware of was that all these plays that you submitted to get into the class,
right,
he turned around and turned them over to a director. And the director got actors to come in and they would read the play to the class.
Your class?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't have anything to do with it.
Right.
None of the authors had anything to do with it.
Right.
They would sit there, and I found out that they were going to read my play.
Right.
All 16 pages.
Right. The unfinished version.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of ended.
Right.
Because, I just took...
It's a sample, though, right? It's just a sample.
It's just a sample. It's just for 16 pages.
Sure.
And so I went with the script so I could write notes as I listened to it, and I could write notes with what the class said.
Sure.
Well, it just so happened that the day they were going to read my play in class was the day Edward Albee got his 3rd Pulitzer.
Oh, gee.
And you think, oh, this is going to be terrible. This is going to, I went in dreading the whole experience. And after we read the 16 pages, and it just kind of ended.
Right.
Everybody was hanging, wondering what was going on, what was going to happen.
Right. That's not a bad thing.
Edward Albee turns to me and he says, "There was some laughter in the class. Did that offend you?" And I looked at him and says, "No, I was hoping to hear laughter at that point.
Right.
I was glad I heard it."
Right.
And he says, "So do you want the audience to laugh at your characters or with your characters?" And I thought, I'd rather have them laugh at the characters. These characters are not supposed to be in on the joke with the audience.
Right.
They're just being...
Right.
And so I said, I didn't want them to laugh at the characters. He says, all right. And he turns around and said, "All right, class." They crucified it. Nobody, except one person, liked what I'd done with it. This sounds too much like this. It sounds too much like that.
Right.
And it was very romantic. It was, and I'm just going, maybe this is not something I should continue. And then it dawned on me, I don't agree with most of these people most of the time anyway. Why should I care what they say? Yeah. They're not right. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, I'll finish it anyway. I don't care. Right. And finally, there's one guy in the corner who was doodling the entire time. This is one thing you don't do in Edward Albee's class. You don't doodle.
Oh, gee.
I did it once, and he chose me to do something.
Right.
And so you don't doodle in his class.
Yeah.
And so this guy was doodling, and he says, "What did you think of the play? What did you think of the play?" And he looked up and says, "I liked it." Okay. And he says, "What did you like about the play?" And he says, "I like Steve." Steve was one of the characters. I had a great deal of fun writing Steve.
Right.
I like Steve. And he's going, well, I'm just vindicated. One person liked it, and he likes Steve. I don't care what the rest of them say, and that's one of the impetus that I don't have to write like Edward Albee. Mm-hmm. I can write what I want. Mm-hmm. And so,
have you ever done an Edward Albee play?
Almost. I was somewhat considered for the part of the human man in
Is it Seascape?
Seascape.
Yeah.
friend of mine was directing it. She said she had turned to a mutual friend of ours.
Sure.
And says, "Do you think Quint would do this?" Well, I had just gone through open heart surgery. I wasn't about ready to do anything at the time.
Sure.
Says, "I don't think so. He's just had to go through surgery." And, what happened? He said, "Well, he had to replace a valve in his heart and blah blah." And so, I mean, I've posted it on on Facebook.
Sure.
But this director doesn't go to Facebook.
Right. So she didn't know.
She didn't know.
Right.
So I didn't get into the show. It would have been fun to do it because I would have got to work with Sam Martinez.
Sure.
Maria Sergal, but I didn't.
Yeah, I have to admit, that was, because I'm not an Edward Albee fan. Seascape, actually liked a little. That one. And the reason I said this, I saw A Delicate Balance in London.
Oh.
And it came, other than getting to see Maggie Smith from about 5 feet away, because we had a box. That was the only thing that was available. And realized that Maggie and the lead, which is Eileen Brennan, didn't get along, and it was palpable on stage. That was really interesting. That was the most interesting part. The Delicate Balance.
You're not supposed to get along.
What the heck is this supposed to be about?
You're not supposed to get along in A Delicate Balance.
Except that this was different. This had nothing to do with acting. You could tell that that Eileen was obviously the star,
right?
But Maggie was getting the attention. And she didn't like it, and that was obvious.
Okay, that
had nothing to do with the play. Believe me, that was.
I can understand that. I really can.
Yeah.
I've seen A Delicate Balance. I saw it in kind of a black box setting.
Absolutely.
And one of the characters, one of the actresses that I knew at the time, she was playing one of the characters. And, one thing about Edward Albee's characters is you don't like them. Most of the time, you just don't like them. I loathed this character as a person.
Right.
I didn't loathe the actress. I thought she did a very good job.
Right.
But I loathed the character.
Sure.
As a person.
Right.
And so when I told her about that, she says, I really loathed you. And she said, "Oh, was I that bad?" She said, "No, you were that good. I just loathed the character as a person."
Right.
She says, "I really didn't like that person."
Right.
And she's going, "Oh." I saw a television production of another of Edward Albee's plays. It was called All Over. And what it was that you had this family waiting for their father to die.
Okay.
And they're going through all this angst and bitterness and everything. And finally they come in and says, "He's passed away." Mm-hmm. And the mother turns around and says, "Well, it's all over." And I said, "I went through 2 frickin' hours to listen to that. Enough. No, I did see a production of Zoo Story, and I really liked Zoo Story. Mm-hmm. It's a 1-act play, which is about all you can take of Edward Albee. I tried reading Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
I don't think you want to read it. I've seen it. You've probably seen it too, yeah. On stage as well as film, right?
But I tried to read it because I was thinking I'd like to direct it.
Right.
I fell asleep 3 times in the first act. Just reading it. I fell asleep, literally. Second act wasn't that much different.
Right.
3 times. And you're reading it and you're going, does this play ever end?
Mm-hmm. Tell me a writer that you really like.
Neil Simon. I've done a few of his shows. I had a great deal of fun playing Ernie in Rumors.
Yes. That Ace?
No, it was at Playhouse 1960.
Okay.
And the woman who was playing my wife in that was about 30 years my senior. Mm-hmm. And while she was throwing her back out, of course, all make believe, she's going, "Oh, I am dancing around like nobody's business." I have a copy of it if you ever want. It's one of the stupidest dances I've ever had to do. But I just went and did it over the top. And so finally, when the policeman comes in, I'm supposed to say the first line. So what can I do for you, officer?
Right.
And I'm just going, so what can I do for you, officer? Because I was so winded from doing that dance. And everybody else is just going, seems to be, but I am just so winded. And it was just, I had to really breathe deeply and get through it. But it was one of the most rewarding and fun shows I ever had to do. Was playing these very strange people. But I really enjoy doing Neil Simon. I enjoy doing The Odd Couple. I enjoyed directing Jake's Women, which consists of one man, Jake, and 7 women. 2 of them are.
Right.
When I say his daughter, one daughter is 12 and the other one is 21. And so you had 2 actresses playing the same role. But one was at 12.
Younger, right.
And so it just seemed to work out, and his dead wife is there, and his current wife is one of the few real people that actually appear there. There's a date that he has where an imaginary Maggie, his wife, comes in and really distracts him because he sees his women, who are mostly figments of his imagination, including his analyst and his sister. And one of the best scenes, and the people who played these parts just carried it off so well. One was Maria, of all things. It was her first play that she ever did.
Well, yeah, I think we talked about that in her interview.
Yeah, Jake's Women. There is one scene in which Edith and Jake's sister are just really chewing his ear, and he can't take it anymore, and so he goes up and into the only working door on the set.
Right.
Everything else is so open that people could walk in from anywhere.
Sure.
And so he goes through the only working door, and when he closes the door, since Jake isn't there, they stop talking. The 2 women stop talking. And what I told them to do, as the directors, is to actively wait.
Okay.
They would see each other, nod. They wouldn't say anything.
Right.
They just nod to each other and look around, that type of thing. But actively wait. Then you'd hear a toilet flush, and Jake would walk out. They'd start right up from where they left off.
Right.
It was. They did it. They carried it off so well that that was one of my proudest moments. Was when that would happen. He would walk off and he'd walk back on, and it'd just start right back up. And it was very rewarding. I really enjoyed directing that show. But I'd like to do a little more Neil Simon, I think. I'd like to do a little more Shakespeare, too.
I enjoy Shakespeare, but he's a hard sell sometimes. Yeah.
Sometimes. It depends upon what you're trying to sell.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you're trying to sell Taming of the Shrew, you can just about get anybody to come see it.
Yeah.
Romeo and Juliet will be a nice draw. But if you're doing Titus Andronicus, nobody will come.
That's right.
Or if you do Cymbeline, and you're going, who in the fuck is Cymbeline? Or Coriolanus.
Yeah.
Why do I want to do Coriolanus? What is that about? And one of the things that you don't know is that we talk about pandering to somebody. There was a character in Cymbeline, not Cymbeline, Coriolanus, called Pandarus. And he tried to placate everybody.
Right.
He pandered to their emotions. And that's where we get the term pandering. Is from this character in one of Shakespeare's plays. And But oddly enough, one of my favorite plays of Shakespeare is Macbeth.
Don't say it! Don't say it!
And no, I will not go outside, turn around 3 times, spit, and ask to be let back in. I think I figured out why it's a cursed play, or why they say it's cursed. And it deals from, it comes from 1848. The great actor, the English actor, William Macready, was in the United States to tour from city to city. And I believe he was in Washington. Or no, it was in New York. It had to have been New York. He was in New York, and he had the temerity to want to present Macbeth. Mm-hmm. At the same time, the great American actor Edwin Forrest was also doing Macbeth.
Oh, dear.
They disliked it so much that they literally booed him off the stage. Well, a few days later, he thought he would put Macbeth on again. Sure. Edwin Forrest was doing Metamoroso, Chief of the Wampanoags. And he was just going, oh, I'll do Macbeth again.
Right.
And so he mounted Macbeth, and the audience disliked it so much they burned the theater down and sought his blood.
Oh, dear.
He had to go into hiding. They had to spirit him out of this. They had to sneak him out of the city. He still had a very successful tour, but I don't think he did Macbeth
Right.
for the rest of the tour, for fear that they were going to burn it down again. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's cursed, is because William Macready tried to do Macbeth when Edwin Forrest did Macbeth. And, I mean, an American named Richard Nelson, he wrote a play about that incident.
Right.
And it's called Two Shakespearean Actors.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically Edwin Forrest and William Macready. Macready seeks refuge from the mob with Edwin Forrest. And late at night, they go out on the stage and do a kind of duel, so to speak. Not one where they were firing shots at each other, or they're fighting with swords. Well, they do fight with swords a little bit, but they're each playing a different Shakespearean character.
Yes.
And finally, one gets up and does I can't remember which one. I think it was Hamlet. Edwin Forrest starts doing Hamlet, and Macready says, I was going to do Hamlet. And he says, you have to be faster than that. And it's really a very interesting experience to watch, to watch the two. When it was done in New York, Brian Bedford played the part of William Macready. He's English. He was playing part of William Macready, and the part of Edwin Forrest was played by Victor Garber, which would have been a wonderful show to watch. Right. I would have loved to have seen that show, because I've read the play. Right. I know what the play means, what the play deals with, but it's just like, wow. To see these two people play against each other. I'm a real fan of Victor Garber.
Oh, absolutely. Wonderful actor, yes.
Yes, I loved him in Titanic. He's one of the things I watch that movie for.
Not from the movie itself, but for him.
not for. Well, I like the music to it.
Right.
The ship is.
It's 90% scale model.
It's
incredible. It's 90% scale.
They did a good job with it, but it's not so much for Kate Winslet nor Leonardo DiCaprio, but some of the other characters.
Sure.
The captain. I know a woman who says every time I see that scene where he goes into he goes into the bridge,
Right.
the closed bridge, and the water, it's submerged, and he walks in there, and the glass breaks, and the water comes in, and of course kills him. But, she says she still cries every time she sees that. And Bernard Hill, who plays a part of the captain, just does such a wonderful job of that. He just can't do anything but feel for him. And Victor Garber playing Andrews, the man who designed and built the. He does have a passable Irish accent, and he does such a wonderful job, especially when he turns to us. Little Kate, I'm sorry I didn't design a better ship for you. But it was just, he's one of the people I really like to watch. Even I'll watch Annie with Kathy Bates so I can see Victor Garber play Daddy Warbucks. I've done almost 140 productions.
Right. When you watch a good actor, what is that you're looking for? Is it just for enjoyment, or are you actually looking to pick something else up, or something that you hadn't noticed before? What is it?
I just watch to see how they
their choices,
how they form their character. And there's one actor here in Houston. His name is Mac Hayes.
Yes,
a wonderful actor, wonderful director. I saw him. I was the assistant director for The Wisdom of Eve at Playhouse 1960, and he came in to play part of Margot's husband.
Right.
And he played him like John Huston. I'm just going, why did you choose? When I was reading it, I saw John Huston. And it turns out he went to Juilliard under John Huston. And so Mac just did that. And I was amazed at that. And I watched him do other shows. And I'm constantly amazed at the choices he made.
Right.
And I'm just going, I really like watching this guy because I see something new all the time. Right. But it's I like seeing what choices he's made for the part. And so I do watch people to see how they create their characters, and also one of the things I know where they've done a very good job is when I no longer see the actor, but I see the character. When I see the character up there and I don't see the actor. I would have loved to have seen the production of Othello, where Laurence Olivier was playing the part of Iago, because he always thought of Iago as being a very suave and debonair type of character, very likable, but so jealous and so ready to stick it to the man.
Right.
But he just wanted to be very charming, so that when he did what he... when you see me direct, sometimes I will get up there and I will ask people about actors from old movies.
Right.
These are people I know.
Right. Sure.
And a lot of times I get, who? I just can you do this part with a little bogey flair from Casablanca? Who? What? You don't know Casablanca? You don't know?
Right.
And so you start thinking, So I will ask somebody sometimes to try something with a flair of something like, and don't tell them to do it that way, but to do something like this.
Right.
And I give them an example.
Right.
And to try and... because a lot of times I don't expect them to do it exactly that way.
Right.
But when they try to do it that way and put a little bit of themselves into it, it adds a new dimension, which is not something that often I'm looking for them to do. And then sometimes actresses will come up with something that I've just thought of. Mm-hmm. And I don't need to give them that note.
Right.
I directed to Jillian on her 37th birthday at Pasadena Little Theater. Mm-hmm. It was a play that people stayed away from in droves. But there was a certain scene. It was a scene where David, the father, the husband of the dead Jillian,
right,
is talking to his daughter. Mm-hmm. And the way I had blocked it, I had them close, but there was no touching.
Right.
And there was something missing. There was just something missing. And I thought, one night, it finally came to me when I was at home. I was in bed. I was thinking of this scene. And all of a sudden, I said, what if he just reaches out and touches her cheek? As a father would.
Right.
And I thought, I'll have to bring that up to him tomorrow. So we did the run-through. And when we got to that scene, the girl is just looking at, and she reaches over and she takes her father's hand and she puts it on her cheek. And I'm going, she's doing exactly. Right. And so I wrote that down as a note. Right. You know, when I write notes, I write notes as to what you do well and what you don't do well.
Right.
And if you do something particularly good, I'll tell you that you did that particularly good. Mm-hmm. And if not, then I say we need to work on this.
Right.
But I wrote that down as a note, and when it came time to give that note, I looked at her and I says, now, did you think of that on your own? Did anybody tell you to do that, or did you think about that on your own? And she sank down into her chair, and she just kind of nodded. And I looked at her, and I says, well, that was exactly the right thing to do. It's the same thing I was thinking last night. I was going to tell you to do it today. I said, and you did it. Thank you. And then I turned to the guy who's playing her father, and I says, don't make her do that again. Reach your hand out and touch her in that scene, because that's what it needs. It just needs this little touch. Because what it is that it's the daughter saying that you need to move on. Mm-hmm. And oddly enough, in the play, to Jillian on her 30s, Jillian actually appears as a ghost.
Right.
But what she's saying, she's not trying to keep him on the island. If you've seen the movie,
right?
She's not trying to keep him on the island. She's not trying to keep him have a hold on him. But she's telling him to move on. Mm-hmm. Move on. Don't bring me up. Just keep going. It's time for you to fall in love again. It's time for you to do other things. But I'm dead. I'm real dead.
Yeah.
In fact, that's the line that she says, I'm dead, buddy boy. I'm real dead. And but it's the daughter that's saying that she understands that that if he really likes this girl named Kevin, that he can date her and it won't destroy
her, right? Yeah.
It won't destroy her or her memory of her mother.
Right.
Which is what her mother wants, you know. and so she's saying that. Mm-hmm. And then a few minutes later, she goes in the house, and David and Kevin are talking, mm-hmm. and they kiss.
Right.
And right when they're kissing,
right,
she walks back out again and sees them.
Right.
And kind of goes mm-hmm. to let them know that she's here. And one night, on closing night, Bruce Countryman played the part of David. Bruce looks up and he says, we were only trying to see whose arms were longest. Uh-huh. And, or no, we're trying to see who's tallest.
Yeah.
We were only trying to see who's tallest. And she just doesn't let it faze her one bit. She goes on with her lines and everything else. And Kevin goes in the house, and just as they're about ready to go in, he says, "Oh, Dad, you're taller." And she walks in. Talk about trying to put something over and someone else topping it. But this young actress, her mother, who brought her to rehearsal every night, really liked the way I worked with the two kids, the two young girls, because I did not treat them as if they were two young girls.
Correct.
I treated them like actresses, maybe inexperienced actresses, but still actresses, and I worked with them and tried to get a good performance. I got exemplary performances out of both of them. And when I think of that play, those are two of the people I really think of the most and really like.
Let's talk a little about your acting technique. You talked a little bit about that. Have you tried different acting techniques? I mean, you always said you're not into method, but have you tried?
No, I'm not into techniques? Method. In my first production of Taming of the Shrew, I had to work with the Est School of Acting.
Okay.
And the directors were very much into Est, and I was just going, it was really not my cup of tea, but I understood where they were coming from. Mm-hmm. Years later, when I come to University of Houston, one day Dr. Berger comes in and he says, "I'm going to show you something that you can do. I wouldn't suggest you do it for the entire show, but it'll help you get through a particular problem that you might be having. It's called dropping in." I learned about it from Tina Packer. Does anybody know who Tina Packer is? Okay, Quint, who is she? She's the founder and artistic director of Shakespeare & Company in Lenox, Massachusetts. He says, "That's right." And I turned around and said, "She was also my director for Taming of the Shrew." So he looked at me and he said, "So do you know about dropping in?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Have you done dropping in?" "Oh, yes." "I will make you do it then." And he got somebody else to do it, and he just he did a variation of it, which I thought was kind of interesting, but it was it was interesting to see him do it, and for something like that to come back up and come back to me, because I knew exactly. I went through a dropping in session with both Kate and Bianca, because I was playing their father. Mm-hmm. And so I had to, I had to do it with two of them. And of course, they were all looking at me. I was looking at them. It was rather freaky. And I realized what dropping in does is you can manipulate the interpretation of the show by whichever way you want to do it, by the questions that you ask. Mm-hmm. And I've never had an opportunity to use it, so I probably never will. But when it comes to what method I use, I'm a very organic actor. I look in myself to see what parts of myself fit, and what doesn't, I think adds a new dimension. I'm very much an actor of the style of Laurence Olivier. I've read his book on acting, and I've also read his book, Confessions of an Actor. And I find that I really appreciate, and I really do try to do it the way that he would. I don't, as I said, when I played Falstaff, I've never been drunk in my life. And I let my imagination go. Olivier would do that. He'd let his imagination work with him. He would use what he could of himself in there, but he would also say, my thing was, what would I do if?
Right.
And I would think of what I would do and what would fit this character. And so I let my imagination work where my life experiences won't. Now, my life experiences are a little different than most people. When I directed Death of a Salesman, I told that right off to my actors. It says, my life experiences is I'm a Mormon. I've lived my whole life as a Mormon. So Mormonism colors my life, my experiences. And so I want to get that over. So if it seems a little strange what I'm asking you to do, just realize that where I'm coming from. Evidently, it turned one person off so much that she did everything she could to torpedo me throughout the entire show. That's where my life experience goes. So, no, I've never been drunk. No, I've never taken drugs. And no, I don't go out. I don't go to bars. I don't go to a lot of things. I once said I could never cheat on my wife because I'd have to spend so much time away from home. And so, I'd much rather be at home. I'd like to watch television with my wife and my kids. And I introduced my kids very early to old movies. And so they know what Desk Set is. They know what Casablanca is. They even know what the original King Kong is. And because they thought I was kind of strange when I got when I checked out of the library a copy of Birth of a Nation, D.W. Griffith, and watched it. Because the last time I watched it with a bunch of people who were taking a history class, and they just hooted and howled at the acting technique.
Right.
And when you're watching a silent movie, you have to be in a certain mindset to watch it without laughing at the overacting and the antics, because there is no sound.
Right.
You only have the piano playing and underneath, and there is no sound. You have to express everything through your body, and that is something that is very hard for modern people to get without really understanding what it is to watch a silent movie.
Well, let's talk about that, because I've noticed that, except just when we started this interview series, I started trying to notice more editing style. And you notice editing style over the years has definitely changed. It probably didn't start with Spielberg or anything like that, but you know what I'm talking about. So that now it's cut really fast. If you look at even the news, there's like 6 or 7 things going on simultaneously, because I guess that's what we need. And if you look at something else, especially people who are used to it and they don't even know what's going on, and they watch something else, they say, and it's just cut differently. I say slower, like saying Chariots of Fire. Yeah. And they're like, dude, this is boring. It's not so much that the story's boring, or maybe it is boring, but just the way it's cut. And we're just so used to everything being cut so quickly.
Yeah. So sometimes I get that watching a John Wayne movie. I'm of the school where, you get a nice establishment shot, and then you go into a closer shot.
Right.
And I understand all that. And so when I see it, like one of the best establishment shots was in Once Upon a Time in the West. when you see the town juxtaposed with Monument Valley in the background, the town is not there. They built a town.
Yes.
And tore it down again when it was over because it's not there.
Right.
But when you see that town, I mean, it's got a nice a shot of them establishing location.
Sure.
And John Ford does that a great deal, especially in Stagecoach. When you see the first time you see John Wayne, it's a long shot, and then it comes closer as the coach gets closer.
Sure.
And there's a lot that's changed where it's done very quickly because most people can't take it. And when you have a long shot, they get uncomfortable.
Yes.
It's like silence on stage.
Right.
Sometimes you need the silence, and you shouldn't have anything there. But it gets very uncomfortable for people. And so when you do it, you have to make sure that you get just the right amount of time.
Right.
So the audience doesn't go it goes absolutely bonkers. But sometimes you just need the slowness to start building up. So you get a little faster and a little faster. It's a person who did that very well, start off slow and get faster and faster and faster and faster, is Alfred Hitchcock.
Yes.
Especially if you're watching the birds, it seems to be very slow, and then it gets very frantic at times. And then it gets very slow again. Right. And you really need that variation, because if you have just the stimulation of going,
right,
you don't have anything to contrast it to.
And I admit, like I said, there are a lot.
When you talk about the Avengers, I have to remind myself we're talking about the comic books, not
that's right. Yeah.
Not John Steed and
right.
and Emma Peel, who wasn't the first partner that John Steed had. The very earliest ones had a man and a woman. And finally, in the second season, they introduced Kathy Gale, who was played by Honor Blackman. And when she did the role for about 2 years, and then Diana Rigg came in to replace her. And everybody wondered when it was announced that she was going to play this new character on the Avengers, I said, well, can someone from the Royal Shakespeare Company can actually come in and be sexy enough to be in this in this television show? Now everybody only remembers Emma Peel and don't even remember that she was replaced by Linda Thorson, who played Tara King. And of course that only lasted a year, but it was just like there were other people in there too, just not Emma Peel.
Right.
It's just that Emma Peel was the most appealing, pun intended.
Right.
Enjoyed it. Another movie that I really enjoyed also had Sean Connery in it. It's called Wrong is Right. But it took me maybe 10 minutes into the show to realize this is a farce.
Right.
This is a farce. Nothing is real. It is nothing but so I sat back and just let it happen and just enjoyed it, and including the very end when Sean Connery is talking to Bob Conrad, and Bob Conrad is playing this general, and they're going into a country like Libya, and Connery is a photojournalist, and he turns around to Bob Conrad and he says, "Now remember, give me before you take the refinery, give me 60 seconds for a station break." And Bob Conrad says, "You got it." He clicks his ripcord and then jumps out of the plane. And Connery reaches up, clicks his ripcord, and then he stops, and then he looks at the camera and says, "Oh, what the hell?" He reaches up, grabs his hair, throws it across the fuselage, and jumps out. Well, after I saw that movie, and remember, it took me only 10 minutes to realize it was it was a farce.
Right.
I got home, and I just happened to turn on sneak previews with Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert, and they were reviewing Wrong is Right. They should have been a little more serious with the show. Well, they didn't do this. It would have been a much better show if they would have done this, if they would have taken it more seriously. And I'm just going, it's a frickin' farce. And I'm just going, these people have no idea. You can get so involved with your own critique that you miss the point. And I'm also one of those weird people who likes a movie because it's so bad.
Sometimes that can be good, right? It can be so bad it is good.
You watch it and you're just going, I don't believe it. It's like watching Plan 9 from
Outer Space. Absolutely.
You watch it.
The original.
The original, and you watch it with your mouth dropping because you can't believe how bad it really is.
And it's so bad, it's funny.
You watch it and you're just going. And the Medved brothers wrote a book called The Golden Turkey Awards, and the movie that got the Golden Turkey for the worst movie ever made went to Ed Woods for Plan 9 from Outer Space. Nobody has been able to really come up with something that bad. But what makes it really weird is it was made to be so serious.
Right.
It's supposed to be so cutting edge, and it is so not.
It's so hilarious.
And how many times can you watch the one scene that Bela Lugosi did come out and how many times can you watch that and then see the other guy who looks nothing like him doing that?
Go from daylight, night, day, night, day.
The most creative use of the word there. Don't worry, darling. You'll be in there, pointing to the bedroom. I'll be up there, pointing to the stars. And they'll be out there. And you're just going, I could write better dialogue. But the thing is, it's so bad. It's so bad. And the special effects are just so poorly done. Even so much as you can see the string on the burning plate in front of the skyline of Los Angeles. And you're looking at that and you're saying, that looks like a burning plate. You can see the line. They really went all out for this, didn't they?
Yeah, they went all out.
And I mean, it was just so funny to watch it because you're looking at it and you're just so astounded that anything is quite this bad. You'll watch it again because it's so freaking bad.
It's so bad. We'll watch it again and again. I don't know how many times I've seen it. Yeah, because it is so bad. It's fun.
You have a great deal of fun watching it. Now, I also had some problem. Well, not a problem. Had some friends. We went to see Chariot of the Gods.
Yes.
By Eric von Däniken.
Yes.
And he was asking these questions like, how do you get these? How do you get these blocks from the quarry over here 200 miles to where they built the pyramids? And one of my friends, very loud voice. We're seated in one row in the middle of the theater.
Right.
And he says, slaves! And we're watching it going, how'd they do it? Well, it took a lot of slaves. Turns out they the one of the big marvels is how did they get the stone figures on Easter Island? How did they get them to where they are? And it turns out that they walked them down, tip them, and
right.
twist them so they
right.
all the way down to where they wanted it. Didn't take an alien in the spaceship to beam up Scotty.
Right.
Which is another line from...
oh, absolutely, yeah.
I did a little play called The Instant Macbeth on Roller Skates. Mm-hmm. Yes, we were on roller skates. Yes, we wore bad kilts.
Right.
And yes, we all had bad Scottish accents. Mm-hmm. And when I say bad Scottish, I mean no two were alike.
Right.
And when Macbeth is going to be killed, he's not going to be killed by a sword, but he's going to be shot with a bazooka. And so when he sees the bazooka and he sees he's getting ready to fire, he pulls out a communicator and flips it open and says, Captain Carrick, want to beam up these coordinates. Then you hear, you can't do that, Scotty. Transporter hasn't been invented yet. And he gets shot with the bazooka. But I mean, one strange, stupid little show that we had a great deal of fun doing.
What's the first show you ever did at the Crighton?
At the Crighton, the very first show I did was Mrs. Bob Cratchit's Wild Christmas Day.
You're kidding. That's the first show? You never did a Christmas Carol? Because they did Christmas Carol a lot.
No, I thought about auditioning. I saw that production, by the way.
Which one? I mean, they did several.
It was the last one they did.
The last one, so that would probably be, what, 2007?
Yeah, Carolyn was in it.
2006. No, it's 2006. That's 2006, yeah.
Yeah, just before...
Before they did that, because after that, then they did Miracle on 34th Street. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've done it over the years, yeah, several times.
Well, they did it one year with John Stevens playing the part of Marley.
Right.
And he talked 1960 into doing it, where I played the part of Scrooge.
Right.
And then they did it about 2 years later again here.
Right.
And I was actually a courier at the time, and I on audition night or audition day, I had actually had to take an envelope up to Willis.
Okay.
So I was coming back.
Right.
And I was thinking very seriously about stopping in and auditioning for it. Mm-hmm. And I didn't. I went on, and when I went to see the production, Sean Ferret, who played Cratchit in 1960, he was in the audience.
Right.
He was about 3 rows away from me. Mm-hmm. And when I saw him at the intermission, he says, "Why aren't you down there doing that part?"
I think John Stevens was also there. Yeah, because he was,
He was playing Marley again.
Yeah, it was Marley in chains.
It did kind of, you see, I like the idea of Marley holding keeping the show together, you know. I mean, in the book, you don't have to do that, but for the audience, I think they really need to have something to string it all together. Right. I have written the first act of my own version. I steal from everybody,
right.
Including the very bad Kelsey Grammer Christmas Carol that I really didn't like, but I liked one line in it.
Mm-hmm. Which is?
The line is, Mr. Smythe, you're late. You're also out of debt. Which is what I really liked.
Right.
Is because what he's doing, he's made his transformation. And he says, "You're late. You're also out of debt." And, and he tears it up right there. And that's the only thing I liked out of it. Right. But I liked the idea of Marley tying the whole thing together. Mm-hmm. I even like the idea of the tombstone that everybody has seen as Marley changes to Scrooge. Mm-hmm. And I had a different concept of it. Mm-hmm. Is you have the tombstone there, and when the lights are on it, you do see Marley,
Mm-hmm.
But when it gets to the Ghost of Christmas Present,
yes,
the tombstone is backlit.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes up, the tombstone becomes pretty black.
Right.
And on the inside, because the whole thing is made out of wood,
yes.
on the inside, a light comes up, and then you see Scrooge
mm-hmm.
emblazoned in light.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind that was what I envisioned.
Mm-hmm.
And if I ever finish it, that'll be that's part of it, where Scrooge will what looks at Marley on the outside,
right,
becomes Scrooge at the right time,
right,
which is one of the ways that which is the last straw that gets Scrooge to really change his to change his attitude.
Well, we're going to have you come back, obviously, because you got plenty more stories to tell. But I'm going to ask this question that we ask everyone: if heaven exists, what do you want God to say when you get to the pearly gates?
When you get to the pearly gates, okay. What I would like him to say is, "We've got the perfect part for you."
Yes, that's right. Yes, we know. Yeah, we've been waiting for you. Yes,
I've got the perfect part for you. You get to. You get to act with all your favorites, and I would go in and I would get to do some show. I'm not exactly sure which.
Right.
Maybe it's one of Shakespeare's shows,
right.
But I would have people there like Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi, Laurence Olivier. A whole slew of other people that I've admired over the years. And a few pretty faces too. So, and think of the audiences you'd get.
Oh yeah, great man! Thanks for being with us. We'll see you in a bit.
All right.